we shall see the examples of one-dimensional array. The problem statement here is, problem statement of one-dimensional array is to print the elements of static initialization. To print the elements of static initialization, hash include stdio.h int main. So here, in order to initialize a one-dimensional array, we know the syntax. Just for your recall, specifying once again the syntax of one-dimensional array. Syntax of one-dimensional array is, first we need to write data type, array name, followed by within the bracket we need to write the size. So this is the syntax of one-dimensional array. Now we are going to see how to initialize the elements statically, that is at the compile time, and execute the same elements. Now let me give the int some ARR of 5 equal to, so I need to initialize the element 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So these are the elements which are initialized in the array. Now I want to print them, whatever the elements they are stored in their index position, and we all know that array index starts from 0, so for which I require a for loop. Please do remember, in one-dimensional array, for reading or for printing we use one for loop. For I equal to 0, I less than number of elements is 5, I plus plus. Now in order to print this elements, printf %d, as we are writing for individual element address of ARR, but here we need to specify the subscript within this I. So it gives the index of every element, ARR of 0, ARR of 1, ARR of 2, ARR of 3, 4 and so on. So here just I am taking a separator as /n, new line. Next return 0. So this is how the elements are initialized at compile time, and you are going to get the output of all these elements what you have here initialized. Let me execute this code and see the output whether I am getting. So here I am getting the address locations. So in order to print the elements, just we need to remove this address of sign. Now you can see the elements what we have initialized at compile time. These elements are printed as an output 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now if I have initialized only 3 elements, but I am printing the rest of the 2 blocks of this array, then let us see what will be the output of this code. So 1, 2, 3, the remaining 2 blocks are 0, 0. We all know that for integer the default value is 0. For char the default value is null. So this is how we can initialize the elements statically and we can execute the output. For example, in the next case, I want to give a name, char name of, I am giving some size 10 equal to, if I want to initialize at compile time, I am just writing this name Virtulearn. Now I want to print this name, printf. So this is a string. So the format specifier for string is %alias, and here we need to give name. So here, if I am giving just directly identify a name called name, which means I am giving the base address. If we know the base address, then we can extract all the elements which are present in an array. The same way, if I am giving name, then it prints whatever the value whichever I have initialized within the double inverted commas. Now let us see the output. So you can see here Virtulearn. So this is how we can get the output for a given static initialized program. The difference is, whenever you are writing a program, try to prefer writing a dynamic program, because these static programs you run for n number of times, you will get the same output what you have written. So if you want to get these things, whatever you read at runtime, then we need to initialize dynamically. Very simple. The dynamic initialization you will be seeing in the next program. I hope you understood this static initialization. The next example is to read and print the elements of an one-dimensional array. To read and print the elements of one-dimensional array. Now I am initializing an array int a of, in the subscript we need to specify some size. I am specifying the size as 10. Int a of 10, which means a is an name of the array. If you want, you can also write ARR or any name. You need to write this name according to the rules of identifier. We have clearly understood how to use the identifier names. So the array name must also be written in the rules of, according to the rules of identifiers. Array name ARR of 10. Now here I am taking the size, that is n number of elements which are to be asked to the user, and I is for iterations. Printf, enter the number of elements, enter the number of elements which you want to input as part of an array. Scanf, %d, address of n. So here I am reading the size of the array, that is the number of elements which I want to read in an array. The next one is the very important thing. Whenever you are interested to read the elements in an array, you require one for loop. Now I am writing this logic for reading the elements. Here first we need to write printf, where we need to prompt the user enter the elements in an array. Enter the elements in an array. Now while reading, as I said, we require one for loop for I equal to 0, I less than n, I plus plus. So this is how we need to read the elements of array. %d, address of, what is the array name? Array name is ARR of I. Whatever the size of the array, according to the size of the array, the elements are read, and after reading these elements, now the next task is we need to print the elements of array. Print the elements. So whatever you have read, there we are going to print them. So in order to print them, I require one more for loop for I equal to 0, I less than n, I plus plus. So in order to print, I require one for loop, which I have written it. Printf. Now I want to print these elements, %d with a tab space, ARR of I. Once we have printed these elements, just I am taking the last, the new line, return 0. So we know how to use this for loop. We know what is the syntax of for loop, and whatever the for loop which we are using for reading the elements, the same for loop we need to use for printing the elements. Now let us execute this code and check whatever the elements which we have read, whether the same elements are printed or not. So first I am going to read, enter the number of elements of an array. So I am saying the number of elements in an array are 5. Now the next message which I am getting is enter the elements in an array. Now I am entering the elements in an array. So the first element will be stored in A of 0 location. I am reading the element as 10, A of 1 20, A of 2 30, A of 3 40, A of 4 50. So after reading this 5 elements, the elements are displayed. If you want any message, here you can write any message like the elements of an array are, you can print this element, right? So this is how we can read and print the elements of a one-dimensional array. So we all know that the index of the last element will be n minus 1. That is why we got A of 0 in first 10, A of 1 20, A of 2 30, A of 3 40, A of 4 in 50. So this is how we can read and print the elements of a one-dimensional array.